not serve for them to make changes. Because then you all could say,
But
this is
ultimately,
what
it's
we
the
did.
board's decision. They can make changes.
They can make changes,
Yes.
whether they do or not.
It's only a recommendation to the board.
Yes, it's a recommendation to the board.
Yeah, but to answer your question, I think they do look at this group as a microcosm of the entire
Yes,
Douglas
they do.
County community.
And it's 6:01, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My first note here was to welcome those who were absent last week, and I do not see any such folks. So I'm gonna move to the next point here. Please remember that we are, when we sit at this table, we are caring about the entire Douglas County. And this is sort of a housekeeping reminder. These Douglas County pens are yours, and yet if you take it home, please bring it back. And similarly with the PowerPoints, we've handed out the PowerPoints a number of times. If you could try to remember to bring the PowerPoints when you come, that would be helpful. And Susan is going to show that she is doing, that she has been doing just that. Look at that. Okay. So thank you. Tonight's objectives and agenda. Tonight, yes, we are sitting with our group. We're going to approve the last week's meeting minutes, which were sent to you and then updated and sent to you again, and you have a copy right there. We want to finish the Parks and Recs project recommendations, and that's why we did, to the extent that we could, we've put everything back the way it was when we last left at 8 o'clock last Thursday. Then we'll move to transportation, basically, and transportation has four categories, and we'll start with resurfacing, and if we can, we will get to the intersections and operations piece where you did your homework. So in the process of doing all of this, we want to, when we're looking at the resurfacing, we will be being asked to approve the recommended ratings process that Randy will explain, and the funding level for resurfacing. So that's our second piece of business after we have finished the Parks and Rec recommendations. And then should we get to the intersections and operations category, we'll be talking about things to take into consideration in that area, and ultimately we will prioritize a list of intersections to be improved with 2016 SPLOST funds. So we have a lot to do, that's what we're up to. The way we're doing this is we're going to do a check-in. And this is also trying to spend a minute or two hoping that a few more people will be sitting in these seats when we go back into our small groups. So I'd love to have you go around. We'll begin right here and tell your name, because we're still learning names, and indicate if you were on the first SPLOST committee this year, because I'm recognizing that there are some folks, and it would be useful for us as a group to understand that the number of us who have actually been thinking about these issues for longer than the folks who just started on July 26th. And then one thing that you liked about the meeting or that you think will help us do our job.
Millicent Nation, and this is my first time, and not so much that it will help us do our job, but I enjoyed it, and that was the pen thing, where you put on the map where you live.
Oh, excellent.
And tell
Okay.
what you like.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah.
I'm Daphne Simmons, and no, I was not on the first SPLOST committee. And I think one thing that can help us do our job, I would say, would be what we actually can do with the actual SPLOST opportunities that are out there. If we could make some changes, if we can't make changes, just make the guidelines for us, so that we're not trying to make changes that we are not allowed to make.
Thank you.
My name is Marcus Durr. I was not on the first committee, and the one thing that I would think that could help us is that we also focus on not necessarily everything that we want, but what we can actually get people to vote on, to agree to.
Michael Young, and I was here with Mark on the first committee. And I really enjoyed last week learning why people were interested in certain projects. You know, what was important about that project to them?
My name is Forrest Johnstone. I was not on the original committee. I think one thing that helped us was by splitting up so we could discuss with our own little small committee instead of trying to hammer something out with everybody all at one time.
Okay, I'm Kenny Campbell. I was not on the first committee, and as he said, it's easier to get down in small groups so you can discuss things. That worked out good.
My name is Mel Hughes. I was not on the first committee. One thing I liked about last week is the open dialogue that we had about the diversity of Douglas County and what it is, what we can do to help improve.
My name is Cartez Harris. I was not on the first committee, and just like a couple of other gentlemen, one thing I did like about it was the fact of how the openness and the hands-on approach we took as far as getting it done in the little groups.
I'm Susan Arnett, and I was on the first committee. There were several things I liked about the meeting last week. The group piece, the part that we did up here, where even though we said things differently, a lot of us had the same input.
Thank you. And there, what, another 3 or 4 folks who were on the first committee who aren't here quite yet? Demetrian and, I'm not sure who else.
And yeah, they were John Sale, Demetrian, Brandon.
So there is an overlap, which I think can be helpful. Great. I think we've done about what we can do at this point. Let's look at our minutes. Do I have someone?
Motion to approve?
Yeah.
Second.
All those say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. We've done that. All right, again, my note said now we will insert the 1 to 3 people who were not present last week into the groups that we're carrying on. So we aren't doing that at this moment. This is a little challenging in that I want to set you back into your conversations, and I'm not sure right now what Millicent is going to do. She may.
No, it must be Susan who's going to do it. I have one.
Oh, you're just sitting on the, you're sitting on the wrong, the different side of the table. Okay, all right.
Susan, talk to yourself.
I can help this right now.
You're ready, huh? All right. So basically, let me remind you where you were and what we're trying to do. In your group, you are trying to come up with a combination of projects that will equal 17 million, that will support the criteria that we mentioned there up on the board. And the new piece of information you will note is here. Remember, we sent you a number of plans based on what people were concerned about, and then Forrest asked us about some specific information about aspects of improving a given park without doing the major, I call it rewrite, but basically, you know, the total renovation. He asked for some specific things, and so we sent that out to you, and for each of your groups, we have that information so that that can also feed into your efforts. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes after I hear the question from Michael to finish this.
For Mark, these 2002 SPLOST expenditures were expended, or they were just, okay.
Yeah. And some of them, the names are a little bit misleading. For instance, it says Winston Park renovations. Technically, that is the new ball field down on the lower
$3 million.
Yeah, so, so some of it, you know, as far as the name goes, it really wasn't renovation of a new field.
Surprised at how much was spent,
There was a lot.
because it doesn't show.
For some parts.
So-
For like Villart Park and, you know, Winston Park, you know, that's the new ball field.
So-
First Road Park, $500,000, you know.
At this point, the question is, what can we do now in 2016? And so basically, I'm gonna give you 15 minutes, and when 15 minutes is up, I hope in that time, you've added up to 17 million, and that you have identified a spokesperson who will walk us through what you're recommending and why in 3 minutes. Okay? So it's not paragraphs, it's 3 minutes, okay? So 15 minutes.
I know we left off last time, I was asking Mark about that.
I couldn't get to that.
Something else that I had put in my. I was asking you about maybe having like a 6-4 bike, not so much just a trail, bike riding.
Right, okay.
Even if it's just around the park, but 2 rounds around the park.
Most companies send out 3 bids before. One of the, is that the highest of 3 bids?
Let's try to actually think about attaching some dollar figures. Are we all in agreement with the rec center,
Price do what we do. Here, the senior center is $6 million.
You always go with the high, I would say.
Does that include the gym or is that because of?
Yeah, rec center without the gym. Won't give you as much. This is this
Another question, one or two, you might be able to answer this. If it does pass in November, how long will it take? The money will start coming in January 1st. How does that, when does the revenue start coming in? When will they have this stuff? It'll probably be 4 or 5 years before they get
So
the
we're
money
talking
to do this.
$8.5 million or is that what we're doing?
Oh, is that, okay, so they go ahead and do the project.
You're not going to add a pool, gym,
No, we're not.
That's what I've been told, one way 6 years, because in 2009, I moved it all this.
able to have a multi-purpose. For seniors for that area. And for your student population too. How much of a difference is there in facilities?
Pay it off.
That's true.
Okay. Let's do it.
What is between the highest number still still talking about 9.
I was about to say, do we have to, yeah, my question is, do we need to add 1.7 to you can understand the logic.
This is the thing.
So the only thing with that one right there is your. Yeah, I agree with you. We should have a purpose.
Well, that's what, so we can call it a multi-purpose. Or senior and rec center. Senior and multi-purpose. So I'm gonna keep a little running. Do we agree that's what we're looking for? So that's 11.2 thousand. So.
It's a multi-purpose, so that includes.
We're looking at 17 billion total, that leaves us with. We'll play this like a bidding game. So what can we get?
Can we get, so unless you buy some down south of
Good.
That's what I was saying. I'd rather use that than build.
Now, where is it gonna put it? Boundary Waters has a bike bikeable, so does.
Are they set up for bike trails?
Well, I don't know about a 10-speed bike, but I've ridden bikes on both.
Sears dump truck.
What about for kids?
What's
Because
wrong
we
with
were
county
doing
dump trucks?
a sprinkler system for kids.
Well, and that's fine, that's
But right now, we ride our bikes just going around the circle to the soccer field, but that's not good. because-
toddlers at Clinton Park, there is a flat paved area on Mountain Waters that is, I would say, a half mile.
Yeah, that's the one that they're supposed to be connected to circle.
I mean, it goes through the woods. Have you gone back to their walking trails, like the breakfast? Paved area back there?
Yeah,
Is it not a circle? Or is it
No,
just
it's not,
going?
it just goes up from, it's not a circle, it's supposed to be, you know, how often that's what
Have 3 bids, is this the highest bid,
it's
this is the cheapest bid?
We'll be over. So, even that we can consider it.
I'm just saying. So we can guesstimate it, let's pick something right. If the pool costs.
Well, could we put like, those sprinkler systems in there, I just take that, take those out there?
You're been to the new library?
For all of it,
It's
for everything?
that middle of nowhere.
I mean,
So that would be a,
Bill, or
since they want to spend this money, since they've already approved, I'd like to put that on
Bill, and Bill, how much money do you have?
is deal included in here?
It's gone off the screen.
just splash water and all that. I don't know how much.
You don't have dugouts for that. It's got dugouts. Trustees just
That's right, y'all got money
So, but somewhere. If we took that would be, does that include a building?
Yeah, that's so, and you got water, using a lot of water to keep it, I'm sure it's not resurfaced. Think about different bags.
I would almost say, all of that. Okay, so that's what,
This is 2.4.
2.4.
What's that?
Yeah, that's what's coming out.
What is that gonna do? Is that deer lick and Bill Art? Is it just Bill Art?
That is deer litter, bill art, and fair play. So let's go.
Do they not have,
Now, one of the things I thought we wanted to.
I thought they had nice restrooms and all that, because
What
that's
you're
not.
saying is,
We get one.
you have to walk a couple hundred yards to get
Well,
back.
What do you mean?
Depending on what you do. Bill Arp has got nice fields. The football field was good, their baseball fields, so I'm talking about turf. That's nice. If you go in and you replace the fences, you replace those existing buildings, then you're starting to get a nice looking park for a reasonable amount.
$1,000 here for entrance to the park.
They say it's up and coming.
It's a very,
Yeah.
So far, we haven't got everyone.
We don't have the money.
I got it.
One Saturday.
We don't have the money. Because that's gonna cut down on long-term costs.
It's actually insane. That's one of the things.
That's 500.
Come on, watching basketball. Play.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
So, lighting for soccer field, if anyone?
Let's hold on. We're heading out with our multi-purpose field.
Winston Park, not doing
Agree on
Winston gets
the
part
rest
of
of the
this.
land water. This is-
Total,
yeah,
we're not getting that total amount now.
Stick him on the board.
We're gonna replace it with this whole thing.
Yeah, basically.
We can draw an arrow. From all of these.
This is part of the big plan for me.
Yes. Not, we're not gonna move the all that. Yes. That's what it is, this one, right?
I'm not worried about that. We're going down there. Deer Lake, Bill Art, that's all, whatever you can do with that.
Was any resurfacing on that? That might be included on that. Okay, so we're at 1.9 million. I don't know that we need all this, but.
Skipping, resurfacing, what's that?
Boundary waters, lighting for soccer field, restrooms, concession stand, press box.
We need to leave some.
Why can we not put one of those story buildings there for children?
I will use some money, I'll use some extra if you can for this, because
Quite possible, but would y'all be opposed to having all of these two-story buildings for 200,000? But that's, as I said,
Everything that's left.
what's that? It has restrooms on the bottom?
No, it's gonna be the 10.
No, it's not.
It's there.
Oh, okay.
So, essentially, we do one part, or with the research.
No, the big ones are so.
I didn't pay attention to the.
So, yeah, they use him here, right?
So,
That's the one that put us under.
Okay, so we start at 1.9
Better
million.
under,
Okay, now, boundary waters,
so I think all five of you,
I just don't know what you put in a little line.
three, like one,
For the remainder of the
one of
parts.
these,
Well, we have 1.9.
there's 200,000
Do we want all of that?
When I last time, so it's
All
all.
of it.
because somehow may be in very good shape. I don't know if it's decent at all, but just
Okay,
specify
okay,
the
Power
words.
One
Get
should
the word
already.
first, and then there's any money left. Go back. That's when we are.
This is $10 million.
But
$17 million, that could be $4 of them more than there.
You know what, I would like to see outdoor basketball goals put at these other parks.
Okay.
There's a couple of them that are there in the parking lot. And what's our expense gonna be? Draw it off, put up new basketball goals, 2 at each school, each park. You know what I'm saying? Both of them.
How many spots? I don't know, just assign a figure.
Basketball goals, 2 per park. And we got, we would have the indoor facilities, so then I got
Spread it around,
we got
we do it.
1, 2, 3.
Why don't you just prove the ones that are already there?
They're not.
I don't think there's any picture of already.
But that is.
But would you need them to do it if you have an indoor? Well, I went to beer, I
So
went
you've
to
been
beer
there
the
how
other day and the inside facility was closed.
Oh.
So maybe we did.
I was going to.
I'm here for 3 years.
Georgia.
You come from California?
From California.
This is straight away 5 first exit. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess. Can't look at what claims on this side. Claims and bags.
To me, that seems.
So I'm taking these away from you, and I get your permission, right? Okay, these are from this one. This is for calculations. Thank you. And I'm gonna go around because this is
Randy, they would tell me, we ain't voting for her next year. And all I want.
Could I have the ones that
Highway
are not on the board?
There's 4, there's a gas station on each corner. There was a bank and a stopping.
We got some more.
They stopped at pastures,
Thank you.
lakes.
Fell off the wagon.
These are the ones you guys are using, okay? Excellent. Okay,
Had a Mountain Dew down.
The little girl is good, but I don't want to be like.
all right, for people who are ready, why don't you come sit down so we can see how many people are ready?
We got that.
I'm gonna have them. Okay, well, we're back.
Pro road. But we don't want to be
Now I got a task, and he said,
Marietta or nothing like that. We don't want
sleep till it's 9 o'clock
All right, you all.
in Dallas.
for what we did.
I'm gonna speak slowly as you finish. So here's what we're gonna do. Each person is gonna present their basket, and ultimately, we're going to have them join around here. And so basically, this is a challenge. So I'm gonna have each one come over here and make the presentation, and ultimately, there will be all 4 of you lined here, and then we're gonna create a 5th one. So, since Susan is still adding, perhaps we will begin with B. So what we're gonna be doing is ultimately being around here, and so you all can move so that basically the focus for the next part is going to be along here, and all observers would need to find a place over there, because this is our front for the moment. And so when whoever it is presents, you have 3 minutes, and basically tell us what you're recommending and any rationale that explains why you chose this versus that in your 3 minutes. And I'm basically gonna time you because this is. Okay, so is everybody ready for this?
Group B, and we decided that, I guess within the $17 million budget, what we want to do is, well, I guess our most important was the rec center and the gym over on the west side, because pretty much for the most part, as I've been told, it's not too much over there for them. There's no gym or recreation center for the west side, definitely. We wanted to allocate $500,000 to the trucks and other machinery, because that would help with, I guess that's what having to rent stuff, help with the budget. But we allocate, we're gonna give the whole, what's that, 8.5 for that, and $500K for the dump trucks. And for the splash spray, we wanted to do both Boundary, Waters, and Clinton, so that's 2.4 million. And with what was left over from that, those were the main things we wanted to do. From the parks, instead of giving one park a certain percentage or whatever, we just said we'll take whatever's left over and divide it amongst the 4 parks. So we said we wanted to renovate Fairplay, Winston, Billard, and Deer Lick, and we'll give them each 1.4 million. Just to divide it up so there's no biases or anything like that.
Thank you. Let's have everybody applaud each. Thank you.
Do we need to move on or leave them up?
No, I'm gonna bring this behind you. So, we're gonna do this here. So what I'm interested in your being able to do is ultimately see all of them. So we should be listening to what each person, each group says, and then you're looking to see similarities. Okay? So,
I didn't make a whole lot of changes from what we started last Thursday night. I added a few more pieces that we hadn't yet gotten to. I started off with the senior center in Lithia Springs, and I did not choose the pool option. The Dog River Nature Center was one that we thought would be possibly a money maker, hopefully.
How much for each?
I'm going with the numbers that are here.
Oh, okay, and could you call out so I could?
Yes, the Lithia Springs Senior Center was the $6 million, and that would be great if you'd add it. And the Nature Center, the Dog River Nature Center was $2.8 million. Lighting for the soccer fields at Boundary Waters, and I also said, this was one that I did add without the other guys, to do the restrooms and concession and so forth at Boundary Waters. So that was $160,000 for the lighting soccer fields, and the restrooms was $650,000. And then I thought, we all talked about it, and we said it would be real important to make sure that we had enough equipment to take care of it, so we added in the $500,000 for that. Resurfacing, I went ahead and did all the tennis courts as a way of adding additional work, or additional, we always talk about soccer and football and stuff like that, so I wanted to at least get something else out there for tennis. So we did resurfacing tennis courts that was up here for, and that was a total of $2.2 million, and resurfacing Deer Lick Park and Winston Park for the amounts that they had there.
thank you. Great in your 3-minute effort. And C is ready.
We made our #1 priority a multi-purpose rec/senior center. We also added the pool into that, so it would be 11.2 million. We said that we would like to see a additional bike path that is a circular path for approximately 1 million. We added in there. We came up with the entire parks list and support this spreadsheet at 2.4 million. We added the equipment at 500,000. We said that we would like to, all of these go over there. We would like to see all the outdoor basketball goals replaced at each park. We didn't have an estimation for that. We said 900,000, give or take. That leaves us with 1 million left over for run over. If a project goes over that, we'd like to see that go to that. If not, we can go into the resurfacing on the other parts. So we're coming in at 16 million.
Oh, they're coming in this budget, look at that. Thank you.
In our group, one of our primary priorities last week was the addition of a rec center with a pool that hopefully will be able to be combined with both youth and seniors, along with $500K for the trucks to be able to keep up our parks and everything. We're going based off of this number here, that 2.4 million, to redo our parks, not to redo them completely, but just to upgrade them. We did decide to go along with the Dog River Nature Center, as well as improving the concessions and the restroom areas at Boundary Waters. We also agreed on resurfacing Winston, Deer Lick, Winston Park, Deer Lick Park, as well as adding lighting at Boundary Waters for $160,000. And with that, we had about a little over $1 million left. So we could only do 5 tennis courts, and so with that, we decided to resurface the 5 worst tennis courts at each of these locations. So if it was 1 at Winston, 1 at Bill Arp, 1 at Woodrow Wilson, and then 2 at Deer Lick, the 5 worst, we decided to resurface those. And with that, we had approximately $400,000 left.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, what we get to do, and that was 3 minutes. Thank you. Now what we get to do, and I'm inviting you to get as close as possible, we're going to look across these. So I suggest that the 3 of you come over here so that you can see all of them. This room is not ideal for what we're trying to do. So what we're going to do is find out what's in common. So what's in common? The 500,000, look at this. So, basically, I'm gonna take all of these and we're gonna put them together. And this is where, Cortez, you would start calculating. So, what we're doing is we're taking people's best thoughts and we're using the color scheme to try to make it halfway easier, because obviously then people change the number and put in another number. At least though, this is gonna help you. So is there another item?
Resurfacing Deer Lick Park.
Resurfacing Deer Lick Park, which is in this color, and if we get this one,
But we changed that.
but
to just-
we changed it, so that's the next thing that we're gonna talk about, okay? So this is inch by inch. Okay, so what we have are a 400K, a 400K, a facilities.
We changed it to matching the spreadsheet on the bottom, to do incremental improvements, not necessarily just their resurfacing. There are other things that need to be done in addition to resurfacing their work.
So is there a number?
2.4 million for all.
For all of it, that's what
Okay,
we
so
group all
this
of
is-
those parts together, the bill art,
So can we divide the bill ARP, divide it by basically,
we'd have to use a spreadsheet to find out what was allocated for each.
there's an
part.
agreement that we want to do something with Deer Lick Park. We're going to have to decide how much we're doing it, in order to move on to the next
So
thing.
what was allocated on the table?
Resurfacing and the spreadsheet are separate issues.
Yeah, I think our group said resurfacing was less important for any one part than the other repair. I might be misspeaking for our group. but I
No,
think
that's
what
true.
we
So
agreed.
what's on the spreadsheet for,
Resurfacing is not on that spreadsheet.
It's 2.369.
for?
That's for fencing, dugouts, backstops,
Building.
score boxes, restrooms, concession stand.
Yep, so that's the 2.4 million would be,
Mhm.
would be allocated on that sheet.
So,
So you could write
We-
2.4 million and you could tie it to that spreadsheet.
and,
You do the same thing for each of the other parts
so
that we have.
this is 2.4. Now,
No, that's resurfacing.
We had resurfacing as one of our lower priorities, so with money that was left over, we said we would go back to resurfacing. We had approximately 1 million left over if it wasn't needed
Okay.
for these others.
what I'm trying to do is address Deer Lake Park. And that's why I was gonna write something on here on Deer Lake Park, because we all have Deer Lake Park
That's fine.
on here.
2.4 million, but you have to tie it to that spreadsheet.
See, they also have, no, this is Deer Lake resurfacing, they have,
So divided
you
by
got all
4.
these, plus you got this number here. They're saying 2.4, so 2.4, you got, how many people said 2.4 on the parks for the spreadsheet? You did, y'all did.
I'm
What did y'all-
that group, I'm C.
Group C.
How many groups, I guess the question is, how many
Group
groups
C and
elected
D.
for the whole spreadsheet?
C and D agreed to the whole spreadsheet? Th-
That
this-
was improve all the parts, because we said 1.4.
Well, we didn't have enough in our budget to do the 2.4, so we,
But if you had, would you have wanted to?
But Millicent, your 1.4, does that, if, no one park is even spending 1.4 on that spreadsheet, if I'm reading that correctly.
That's correct.
So would that be in agreement then? If they had 1.4 and they said this is what we were spending our money on, or you want them just to have that and then distribute? I'm asking, I don't, y'all's group is y'all's group, maybe I need to step out of.
You see what, yeah, you're right, what y'all have is 1.4 apiece. What those two groups are saying is that for those 3 parks, and actually
4 parts.
plus Deer Lake, you're looking at 2.4 for all of them. So you would have money left over,
We,
because you're at 3.2.
So, from my sense as an objective person, if I'm following it, you all really want those. You want all those parks done in that way. And we'll add up what that amount is. You all were figuring out, the point is here, you want this work.
yes, yes.
And therefore, the adding is less important. Right now, we're trying to say, do we want to renovate this? Do we want to add that? Do we want to buy those? So is that okay to add this now, you all? And that would be 2.4 million for
Mhm.
this? Okay, I'm gonna give you that, because I don't know exactly what to do with that. So, this is 500K, and this Cortez is what we're doing, 2.4 million. And now I'm in the market for a next thing that you see that is potentially in common.
It looks like the seniors, multi-purpose.
Group A
On
is-
ours, we took the senior center, the rec center, the gym, and the pool, and used the senior center, up the senior center with pool 9.5, added the 1.7 for the gym, and came up with 11.2 for the whole shooting match, a multi-use center.
So if we looked at this rec center, can I bring these together and we can sort of see?
And there's a rec center
And
there.
there's a rec center there, so we want to see the. Maybe we see that. There, and we'll see this, and we can take this, and I don't think that's what we're doing with that anymore.
And then
2 rec centers, and then you have 1 rec center, including the senior center, and then you have a senior center.
Okay. So, that one, that's sort of related to that one?
One's a senior center in Lithia Springs and the other one's a
this is
senior
without
center on
pool.
the west side.
Yeah.
So the question, my question is, at least 3 groups were interested in the rec center plus the gym, right? And 1 group had the idea of connecting and adding a pool, which might help seniors potentially. So is there a recommendation that we could collectively make around that? I mean, what about the idea of the 11.2 with all that? How does that grab you?
If done properly, it could work.
If done properly, it could work. Somebody else?
In Villa Rica, in Gold Dust Park, they've got a rec center and a section of it, about 1/3 of it is senior center. So it seems to work pretty well.
So it could work?
So, I don't have a problem with that. The only question I have is, if you did that, would you need a different location for you're building a senior center or with the rec
Excellent
center?
question. Yeah.
Because I know the senior center location that you pick is between a fire station, then you have a historic site, and there's a community behind it, so you only have a fixed footprint in order to build in that location. So
Yes. There's not enough room for a rec center next to station number 1.
So
Only a senior center similar to Woody 5. Because you only have 4 acres over there,
okay.
which is similar to the size of the footprint of Woody 5's parking and the building.
So where were you planning on building a rec center originally?
That we haven't decided on location.
Okay. So
So-
your question would be, if you decide to go for a multi-use facility, is it gonna be placed, if they pick a location that's gonna be convenient for, I think what one of you were talking about, seniors as well as the rest of the community? So I don't have a problem if you combine the two, a senior/multi-use rec center. The question is, where are you gonna put it, and do you have the land for it and what have you? Because the site today isn't big enough for that.
Another question I would pose is, would older people go to the same place where children were?
Might not want to.
It depends on what you're.
Different.
It depends on the activity.
It depends on activities.
At a time.
If you go to LA Fitness, the swimming pool area, you have young people, old people, whoever. It's just they have it scheduled so that, certain
And I
sports
would say,
areas.
if you looked at Boundary Water, I'm sure that there's old people and young people there too.
And it also depends upon what facilities you have. Like I think though, if you have a facility that's gonna support, say, someone that's doing rehab, that has the ability, they'll actually place an elderly person in the water to allow them to take the benefit of that, then I'm willing to bet the elderly person will take advantage of that. At least I know that my mother would
I
have.
think
given
federal
her-
regulations are gonna cause all pools, public pools, to have spatulas. I think that an ADA regulation.
I thought the reason for the senior center was to kind of give them their space.
Okay. You can do all of that. So I mean, I think that we need to think about it and then decide.
But just think about it, that the seniors will be there while you're at work, and the children will be there when they get out of school.
So my question at this point is how decided we need to be. So I think the question is, does the group want to go for the combination new rec center, gym, and pool that serves also seniors? And the recommendation, at least in a couple of areas, was west side. Is that enough? I have to ask you. Is it feasible, or is it an idea that can happen based on, some of the?
For instance, if you say rec center on the west side, then there's more homework that has to be done. One, we've got to find a place to
So it wouldn't, so it'd be easier if it were somewhere else? Or easier, or the,
No, the rec centers, we gotta find a place to put it either way.
so is that something that this group can do anything about at this point?
Probably not at this point.
Is there enough land space for either at Clinton or maybe even possibly renovating that Post Road Park?
Yeah.
That would have.
I'm not
facilities
sure
on
if we
that
can
west
put it
side
at
that-
Clinton, there's certain
I know that's
restrictions on
dangerous,
Clinton.
Right,
But yeah, Post Road Park is a possibility.
and that might help revitalize that park.
Yeah, it could.
That's,
How much further does Douglas County go past, going towards Alabama, past Post Road?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Liberty Road to Liberty Road.
Tyree Road.
Next exit.
So why would it be so far on the outskirts? Like, I mean, it's accessible to, shouldn't it be like accessible to everyone or something a specific side?
So when you say, okay, so where would you think?
I don't have any idea.
Because I'm gonna say-
People right there in Winston and Billerica.
Because I was gonna say, when you look at it at where
166.
the one we got, which is at Dearly, that's 10 minutes, as he say, from being in Cobb.
the majority of our counties seem like they're on the fringe, or parks seem like they're on the outskirts of the county somewhere. There's already a indoor basketball facility at Deer Lake, so that would help represent the western side, so you could go either direction.
I was kind of on the eastern side of the county.
That's what, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Eastern. I got my east and west confused.
So my question is for the conversation right now, let me just sort of spell it out. You know, basically, what we're trying to do is to get a basket of Parks and Rec stuff that we are enthusiastic about. I don't know what enthusiastic, we want to do. And we won't have totally wrapped everything up until our last meeting, so there could be some homework that could be done. My question is the sense of the group, and this isn't voting, I'm not voting on the whole package yet because we don't have the whole package, okay? Is the sense of the group that you'd like to go for the larger concept at 11.2 million? And if that is yes, then we will keep moving to keep putting together the items. Is there anyone who wouldn't want to do that at this point, who thinks that's not? Okay, so for the moment, what we're gonna do is put all of this together and say 11.2 here. And I'm open for more business in terms of anything else that is in common that you'd like to see whether it's in common. Let me tell you what we're gonna do if there isn't anything else in common, okay?
The equipment's in common.
Pardon?
The equipment in common.
It's
The
already at the
equipment
top.
is right here. I love the equipment. I'm so happy about the
That's
equipment.
almost the same color.
Yeah. Let me tell you, as you're looking, and let me get out of the way so that you can consider. After we have found everything that the group can agree at this point, yeah, do take off what is,
Those are just the parts that we got the
what we've done.
spreadsheet
If
for.
we've done the parks, then definitely, I'll let Mark do that while I'm speaking. Once we have done everything that goes across these, then what is left, I'm going to put up on this fine cloth, and I'm going to invite each of you to prioritize the top 3 items that you think should finish the basket. And that is how we will get to the rest of the basket. So basically, there are 2 ways of doing it. There's either saying something, saying, well, what if we did that, and seeing if we can agree to it quickly, or we'll move to dots where we can get 9, I think it's 9 FU, 3, 6, 9 senses much more quickly than hearing from each one of you. So, does anyone have a suggestion for anything across here that might be something that everybody would want to do?
Two groups chose the Dog River Nature Center,
That
A
is-
and D.
That is right, so I'm gonna move this one and move this one. And I'm gonna ask, obviously we have enough money for it. For 2.9 left? Do you mean that if people actually wanted to do this, we would have our mark? So,
Two people also had Boundary Waters restroom concessions, press box, and, yeah, for
And
They
also,
kind of like the spreadsheet was.
600K or something.
yeah.
the Boundary Waters restroom was in a couple of places too. All right, so would somebody speak to each of these? And so if we did, let me just put those two together, that's 650, and this is 2.8. And you said, Cortez, that there's 2.9 left. So, I would like a sense of whether, how many people want to do one, which would be this one, versus look at what is left and sequence them up to.
What is the yellow one? Because there are two
This
of
is
those.
tennis courts.
There are two of those also.
Thank you.
And there are two orange ones, which is resurfaced Winston
Those
Park.
are two teal ones too.
Okay,
They had to,
well, so
collusion going
let's get
on.
these things together, because the reason we did this coloring was so that we could do it.
My question is, what all would be included in the Boundary Water, or in the Nature Center? What, is that access to the river? Is that just a building? Is that hiking trails? Is that
We already have
bike
trails
paths?
in.
What is that?
We have trails in the works. We've actually flagged them. We're looking at putting some gazebos, some benches, you know, normal things that are on trails. Nature Center was more, it's like a educational building for kids, as a place to go for adults.
An interpreter,
Yeah, like an interpretive center.
Kind of like Cochran Mill,
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that gonna make money again?
Yeah, somebody suggested that. How would that?
Yeah, how's that gonna make money?
Yeah, when you charge a entrance fee.
So,
I don't know.
did we ever say that all of this was supposed to make money?
That was a comment. So I think I think I had the same question that you had. I want to understand exactly what was the Nature Center gonna get everyone, and who all would benefit from it, because that's, how much was 2.8
This
million?
is 2.8, so it would,
And I was leaning more toward
Stand.
having extra money so that when things went over budget, you have money to move around, so.
and
Save the
following
conversation
that,
extra.
that line of Marcus, if we didn't do that, we would basically rank these, and then you would say, okay, and then this gets done when it has money, and this gets done, and then at a certain point, it
I'm all
doesn't.
about having surplus, so.
Kenny, and then Daphne.
On the Nature Center, I mentioned Cochran Mill, they have summer camps. My
Mhm.
grandson's been to 3 or 4 of them, and that would be a good money making, $100 a piece, whatever it is, for the kids. That could be some revenue coming in if you did the Nature Center.
That's a possibility.
Because there's nothing like that in the county now where they have summer camps as far as nature.
If you do the Nature Center, you're gonna pave the road that goes down, because right now it's just gravel.
At Dog River,
The dock-
it's paved all the way to the library.
Okay.
You're entering through the library area.
what's gonna get it again? Help me with that.
So I entered through the dog park area, and it was gravel.
Yeah, it's more of a facility, I mean, it's like, it's an informational facility, a nature facility, interpret. how you say it?
Interpretive center.
Interpretive center.
They have similar at Sweetwater Creek State Park.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so you're saying like butterflies or?
Yeah, could be like that.
Indigenous
Similar-
wildlife,
Wildlife.
understanding of, you know, the local
Plants,
area,
trees.
plants,
Birds.
trees
Mhm.
around the
Birds.
So we don't
river.
really have a clear plan on
Yeah.
what would be part of it.
No. And also what you could do, you know, if you lock in the top three, then you could prioritize, you know, the last one, because, you know, 17 million is more than likely the minimum that we would get in revenue from a SPLOST. It could be more, you know, if we max out like, you know, it's possible, you could go up to 19. I don't think that'll happen, but it's possible. It could happen.
I did have a question. Okay, we spend 11.2 million on one, you know, the one multi-purpose building. Now, I know we mentioned last week, what would happen if we had upscaled all the other buildings? How much would that cost? But, you know, the buildings that are sitting on there now that could be upscaled. For all the
Parks?
different parks.
That's part
That's part of the-
It's part of the 2.4 as far as the restaurants and concessions.
But it's not the building, it's not the facility, it's just.
It is.
It is the building?
It's different.
Oh, okay. Funny enough.
So I'm getting ready to basically ask a question. You could tell me yes or no to the Dog River Nature Center. And in fact, regardless of the answer, we then would, if the answer is yes, then we're basically finished with our selection because we've run out of money. If you say no, then I'm proposing to put all of these remaining cards over here. I'm gonna read them out to you, and then each one of you gets to choose three. Your top one, your top second one, and your top third one. And then that is going to be the way that we basically prioritize for the rest of the money.
For those five.
From these five.
Mhm.
Now, I wanted to just note, I haven't forgotten this. This says water features both Boundary Waters and Clinton. This says water features
says-
biking.
I know,
It says water features crossed out biking trail.
instead
For
of water
part two.
features, don't do.
So that should have been crossed out so that I could say that it's only biking for these two.
Instead of water featuring, looking at a bike trail for the youth and adults, until we can get that big trail fixed, just something at least 2 miles, where these need to be circular.
And the challenge there for that is, I have no idea how much money that would
Yeah.
cost. And so I don't know how to,
Yeah.
I mean,
so we just
if people
get-
choose it, then I guess somebody would go cost it out and plug it in. And basketball goal, I don't know what's left here, but, and so my point is, that I wanna make sure that everything that is left, you have an opportunity to choose among. So that's where we're going. My question is, do we want to look at the individual things left, or is Dog River Nature Center the thing that we're proposing?
You know, I've got one last question, just so
Sure.
I'm clear in my mind. So even if we vote yes, we're still gonna prioritize those other things in case we have in excess of 17 million?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yes, we
Okay.
can do that. And
Okay,
also,
we'll
Try to
do
get
that.
things straight in
you
my
know,
mind.
also,
Thank you.
as far as the options with this one, you know, those could change. Because we'll have to go back to the drawing board on that one.
So
Talk
you're
to some of
saying
the
we just
engineering
want, we're gonna need
firms
the,
and see what, we'll have to look at that, so we need to prioritize those last five.
regardless.
Mhm.
Okay, so, shall we just prioritize everything? Would that make sense to you? I mean, otherwise, I don't know, I can't wait to get
I
into
think it still makes sense to know where the committee stands on the
Dog
the
River.
green one, the Dog River. I mean, if that's the one large, big ticket item, we need to know if that's a number 5 priority or number 1 out of those 5 that are left. And to me, that makes sense.
Before, I put it along in there, and then it will potentially drop down. Any thoughts before I go set up the next aspect? Hearing nothing. Yes, Mel?
The thought of a nature center, although kind of unorthodox in this time because a lot of our kids don't really go outside anymore, I think it's important to have something like that so that our kids can go outside. My daughter likes to play with an iPad. I don't like it when she plays with the iPad. I'd much rather she go outside and play in the grass, even though she's allergic. That's fine, I can deal with running out. But the thing is, nowadays, kids don't play outside like we used to. And to have something like that so they can go to be educated and then have an opportunity to go to different camps during the summer, fall, maybe even spring, winter, I think it could be advantageous.
It could be used year round.
So you want to take a vote on how many people want to do that now, and if there's a majority, just.
Yeah, including my little bike trail.
Well,
That'll get them outside.
I think it would have trails too already, but I don't know if they're paved or not. But.
Okay, so, evidently all of you all can vote because Daphne is
Yep.
taking somebody's
She's
place.
taking
who
John's
wasn't
place. She's taking John's place, and then we have 3. We have 3 for every group.
So.
1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3.
And majority will rule at this point. Okay, so,
And Daphne.
so the question is, how many people want to have the Dog River Nature Center be the 1, 2, 3, 4th major thing that we're agreeing on? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it does not pass. So now, what we're gonna do is, I'm going to basically put together options over here, and the Mark, you're handing out the dots.
Mm-hmm, I am.
And someone else, Randy, can you look in there and find the dot instructions?
The dot instructions.
No, not from that, the
flip chart.
no, the dots are over here. Here are the dot instructions. And I want to make sure that this is the list before you all come up there. So, are we putting Viking there, and are we putting these water features here?
We've had some.
Greenhouses. Was the greenhouse ever in the plan?
That's what I was saying,
Everybody's trying to keep on.
How many more do you need?
You need to come close.
You got one, everybody's got one.
Okay.
Or you wanna come to the, they have a market out here. Yes. You need to get a little bit more involved in the county.
I want to get involved and learn how to grow it.
They got the master
Master
gardeners. But get a little more
Okay.
involved in your county.
Listen up, we're about to go do some dotting. Is this the list? As far as you know, I'm gonna read them out. And your job is you have 3 dots. Please do not get confused, listen up. The green 3 means 3 points.
Okay.
So don't mess it up and put it on your First, yeah.
Third choice.
Your third
Not
choice.
your third
That
choice,
would be
your first
unfortunate,
choice.
and nobody would know, and you would be sad. So, 3 points for your first choice, 2 points for your second, you can't lose on that, and 1 point for your third choice. And basically, listen as I tell you what the options are, and put your dots up here. Lighting for the soccer fields at Boundary Waters. The amount is not the point, the subject is the point, okay? Lighting for soccer fields at Boundary Waters, resurfacing tennis courts, you don't have to decide where. Resurfacing Winston Park, Boundary Waters, restrooms, concession, press box, football and soccer, Dog River Nature Center, water features, splash spray, and then this is biking facilities. Okay? So, go melee, and some people like to figure out where they're going and then go to it. Don't be affected by your neighbors.
Is that a lighting upgrade at Boundary Park, or is there some lighting for,
There is no light,
at night?
not on the soccer field. There are for the baseball fields and the football. Let's go.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's making it some bad look, but it's very much small as this.
I do, and you're gonna have to fix me that.
Okay.
You get it. And
You got the four. Oh, I got the four. The four high priorities.
oh, you all are totally entertaining.
No, but there's some, low priorities.
Yeah, well, it's gonna rank them.
Can I vote twice on that?
No, you cannot.
That would have been a good idea, though. Nobody would have known if you had just done it.
I know. Thank you for your honesty. Usually people ask before they're actually voting.
Can you put all three on one?
No, can't do that either. All right, so everybody's finished? Okay, so what stands out to you?
No, nature center.
The nature center seems to be something that people are interested in, so that is gonna be 12-15.
The four people that wanted it, plus 3 people that are mildly interested.
Exactly, exactly. So, actually, I don't need to do that. I'm just gonna move these so that you can see the sequence like this. Okay, so
Here, I'll write them
dog,
here.
which is gonna be the
Boundary
next one.
Waters, the dark gray one, I think, is next.
Okay, and that is 8 and 3, 11.
So what is that?
Boundary Waters, the restrooms, concession, press box, football and soccer. Okay,
I think then the water feature is next. It's like 8.
How many points was that one?
11.
this was 11, it's 15, 11, this is 8,
Then you got the lighting.
and then that's 7. So the water features had 8, the lighting for the soccer fields at Boundary Waters, 7,
Tennis courts,
tennis courts, 6,
bike path over there is 5.
bike path,
And then there's the same Winston.
resurfacing Winston. And Mark, did you put something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I was mentioned earlier, and So my question is, there was 400,000 cost estimate for resurfacing the Circle Drive entrance at Deer Lick. So was that, I thought I heard somebody say if this is overestimated, then we use that 400, if there's enough money to pay the Circle Drive and the entrance off of this 2.4 million. Was that correct?
For the resurfacing of the.
Deer Lick, yeah, because that's separate from resurfacing Winston.
Yes, that's true.
So do you want to make a note of that? Whatever you're correct on, make a note so that we have it documented. Okay, so, do you realize what you have done?
We're finished.
Spent too much money.
So, thank you. What you have done is, through if I might say, quite a democratic process. You have, in 4 different groups, you have looked at the material, you went and you looked at the places, you talked to each other, you learned, you asked questions, and then you came up with 4 different scenarios, and then you harmonized them to make something that has been thought through. You talked with each other, you created something that is a possibility that we have to learn about. So, generally at this point, people applaud themselves, so. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, now, some people would think, well, we ought to go home because that was so exciting. Unfortunately, we're not. We're ready for, actually, the next exciting thing. So folks, now, basically, I think, Nelson, you're the one person who probably could adjust. So what we're gonna do now is, when I find my notes and everything, we're gonna turn to the subject of transportation. And Randy is going to sort of reintroduce us, remind us about the fact that there are 4 categories of transportation, and then we're going to address resurfacing, and we're gonna see whether we might even get to a point where we're comfortable about the resurfacing estimate for 2016. Go for it.
So, thank you, Tina. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Randy Halsey. I'm the director of the Douglas County Department of Transportation. I think I've met everyone, but just want you to know that I'm pleased to be here with you tonight and look forward to this process. First thing, let me ask you if you have your copies of the presentation. If you do, pull it out. And we're going to talk just a minute about the categories.
And if you don't, we have a few copies.
Your copies.
Yeah, I'll figure out what they are. Yeah, I got them. Just bring it next week.
So I'm going to refer you, if you've got your slide presentation package, I'm going to refer you to this slide here. And you notice there are 4 transportation categories. Resurfacing projects, which is resurfacing and rehabilitation of arterial and collector roads or the thoroughfare system. And then we have intersections and operations projects, which you did a homework assignment on. And I'll go into more detail once we start to talk about the intersection and operations projects. And then there's another group, economic development projects. And we've given you a homework assignment as it relates to economic development projects as well, to go look at 2 economic focus areas that we are going to talk about when we get to that segment of the categories. And then finally, there's a sidewalk and roadway upgrades project category, and I'll give you, again, more of a definition about what that category would entail and what the process will be, and we'll have a homework assignment associated with that as well going forward. So that's just kind of a refresher of the 4 transportation categories. Tonight, in the time that we've got left, we're going to try to get through what would be the 2016 SPLOST resurfacing element of the program. So first, let me get these maps, and I'll put these on these easels, and you guys can just kind of focus on these.
You want to spread them out in there?
Yeah, we can do that.
Are these all the same map?
These are all exactly the same
Well,
maps,
then
and you'll
maybe we
notice.
could put one here and one there so people could
Sure.
be a little closer.
So if you look at these maps, you'll notice that all the local roads, subdivision roads, the local streets, they're all missing. They're not on the map. So what this map represents is what we call the thoroughfare system. It consists of arterials and collector roads. And I'm going to give you, before we start, I'm going to give you just a definition of arterial and collector roads. Just so you understand the significance of the hierarchy of the road network. So if y'all will, if we can pass these around. So as these are being passed around, what I want you to understand is that with respect to resurfacing, these are the roads that are in play. These are the roads that are the focus of the resurfacing portion of the SPLOST program if the SPLOST program passes. I'll also tell you that there is $18 million that's been recommended for the resurfacing portion of the program. That constitutes about $3 million a year over the 6-year period. So, you should have all been handed the information by now about the definitions of arterials and collectors. So, as I said, there's a hierarchy to the network, and we're responsible for both the thoroughfare roads and all the local roads. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to approach the SPLOST program by only doing the thoroughfare roads as a part of the SPLOST program. First of all, you recognize from the handout, arterials carry longer distance flows between important centers of activity. They're laid out as the backbone of a traffic network and should be designed to afford the highest level of service as is practical. So that's based upon how it carries people from point A to point B. It's the mobility network that we use every day. Collector roads or distributor roads carry low to moderate capacities. They serve to move traffic from local streets to arterial roads. And unlike collector roads, they're designed to provide a higher level or more access to residential properties. So if you look at these thoroughfare maps, you'll see, like I said, that none of the local roads are on those maps. But then if I show you a bigger map, then you can see the significance. I'll put this down here. I think maybe everybody can see it. When it's filled in, you can see the significance of how this arterial and collector system collects the local residential traffic and starts to move it into the network and to other areas, both inside the county and other areas outside the county. So, the point here is we've got to invest more money in order to be more sustainably able to manage and maintain our hierarchy system, the arterials and collectors. Presently today, our resurfacing budget comes out of our annual budget. We spend about $2.5 to $3 million a year out of our operating budgets to resurface roadways. Now, some years it's been a little more than that, some years it's been a little less than that. But typically we'll spend around $3 million or so on resurfacing roads. Heretofore, prior to any SPLOST program, our entire resurfacing program, including all of these residential roads, because they have to be resurfaced as well. All these little fill-in roads, those all have to be resurfaced at some point. However, the frequency is not as high as it is on the roads that you see on those maps, because those roads carry less traffic, lighter traffic loads, and don't carry freight vehicles for the most part. So the frequency is not as an issue in terms of sustainability. So what I propose to the Board of Commissioners is that we not supplant the annual resurfacing program that we do each year into the SPLOST program and replace what we do annually on an annual basis. Simply just throw it into a SPLOST program and call it a SPLOST program and add more money to it. What I propose to the board and what they have agreed to is that this program should be directed to this system, the hierarchy network, the arterials and collectors. While at the same time, we will continue to maintain that operating level of budgetary expenses towards the local and residential roads out of our normal operating budgets annually. So what that allows us to do is take this additional money that we have and put it towards our network, our hierarchy network, in order to make it more sustainable over a longer period of time. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. The reason for this is the network that costs the most money. It costs more to do these roads because they're carrying a lot more traffic, and a lot more rehabilitation is required each time you resurface these roads. Does everybody understand that concept?
I did. Can I, just for clarification, so we're currently spending $2.5 to $3 million per year out of our operating budget.
Right.
And that's for these roads and the minor roads.
Yeah, and let me expand on that a little bit. Our typical goal and objective is to try and do 60% out of our normal operating budget, 60% thoroughfare roads and 40% residential roads. And when I get further into what I'm going to show you and ask you to do, you're going to see that if we tried to get to a pavement management cycle for both our residential roads and our thoroughfare roads, we're looking at two different cycles. Subdivision streets and local roads carrying less traffic, you can get on a pavement management cycle of probably 18 to 20 years on some of those roads. On most of these arterial roads, you're looking at a pavement management cycle of around 10 to 12 years in order to keep the costs from escalating.
Will that percentage still stay roughly the same out of that operating cycle if the operating system?
We will do nothing but residential and local roads out of the operating budget. We will do thoroughfare roads out of this budget, out of the SPLOST if it passes.
But the budget won't change.
So the budget won't change, but all of that money would then go to the minor, the smaller roads, and all of the SPLOST money would go towards the major thoroughfares.
Correct.
So we get more roads done.
So you get more roads done, correct. And you get more of the critical roads done, okay?
And these are the roads that the state will like to match us on to? So
We will go after matching money where we can. The state will match us on what we do up to a point. And that, without getting into detail on that, we normally use that matching money out of our annual operating program, and that's based on an allocation formula that is determined by lane miles and population, and that's how we get that money. We won't get enough money to support this program out of that LMIG program, but we will support our normal operating budgets with that LMIG money. This is an opportunity to surge ahead with a very critical piece of asset management, which is maintaining the networks that we have. More importantly, maintaining the mobility network, or the thoroughfare network. So, all right, so having told you all that, I'm going to pass these around. I'm going to pass those around. And I don't want you to look at the second page. I want you to look at just the first page. And there's a reason for that. And it'll come into focus in just a moment, because it supports a lot of what I've already told you. Before I go into this with you, I want to tell you that this is not about you guys picking out specific roads and saying, we want this road resurfaced or we want that road resurfaced. This is about a process. We want you to buy into a process and sign off on a process as it relates to resurfacing. Does everybody understand that? It's not about specific roads, it's about a process. So, here's what I want you to do. These are generally our rating categories for resurfacing in our ratings database. The Georgia Department of Transportation considers a rating of 26 and above as a road that would be considered for resurfacing under the LMIG program, and they consider that to be the point at which they would put money into a road. But again, that won't be applicable in this process because we're going to direct all the LMIG money up to our full allocation amount based on population and lane miles to what we typically do out of our operating budget. But again, every dime, $3 million a year would go towards this network if we are able to get a SPLOST passed. So let's start with a rating of 20, and you see the characterization. Now there's technical terms for these rating categories, but what I've done here is done away with all the technical engineering language, and I put it in very general terms that characterizes the condition of a roadway so that you all can understand it better. So look at it this way. The rating categories, I'm going to go down the list, and you see the first rating is a road or a group of roads that might be rated as a 20. I want you to mark on that as excellent. And then the 24 or 21 to 24 grade, I want you to mark on that as very good. The 25 to 26, if you would mark that as good. 27 rated roads, mark that as fair. 28 as poor. 29 to 30 as very poor, and 31 as failed. The road's literally disintegrated. So take just a minute, look at these characterizations pursuant to those ratings and the category of excellent, very good, good, fair, poor, very poor, or failed. Okay, now, have all of you, have you seen in your travels, you've probably seen a road that fits into some of these categories? Mm-hmm. You've probably seen some that are poor and very poor. You've seen some that may be good. You've seen some that may be excellent. Okay? All right, so flip the page over now, and I want you to look at the next piece of information. And it's titled Road Rehabilitation and Resurfacing. Up in the upper left corner, you see a pavement condition rating. You see a pavement condition rating chart. Let me explain this to you. And if you'll notice on the left side, it corresponds to all those different items of grading and rating roads. Excellent, very good. Good, fair, poor, very poor, and failed. If you notice that on this bell curve, if you notice that once you start to drop below the good level, then the bell curve really drops off. And the cost for resurfacing escalates 5 times for every dollar that you spend below that rating level. So it's important for us to be able to get these roads resurfaced in a sustainable way so that we don't allow them to fall below the good, the fair, and too deep down into poor, very poor, and failed levels. Because what does that do? Cost us 4 to 5 times, maybe even 6 to 8 times more than it would cost us if we were able to maintain them in a more sustainable way without going too deep down that rabbit. The picture on the right is an example of a road that started to severely disintegrate, and if you go back and you look at the characterization of some of those categories, you'll see that when this starts to consume the travelway and gets into the wheel path of where vehicles travel on the roadway, then you've got serious, serious conditions. You also notice the two pictures on the lower bottom left and bottom right. The right is a new road that we've resurfaced. The left is a road that got resurfaced up to a point. And I'm showing you these because I want you to understand the difference when we use the term oxidation. You'll see once a road starts to really lighten up and all of the petroleum product that's in the asphalt over time becomes drained, then that's when you start to get these alligator fractures, you get rutting, you get wheel rutting, you get water infiltration, and that's when you really start to get into big money. How many of you have ever put a roof on your home, paid for a new roof? Well, you got to catch it at the right time. If you wait until you got leaks in every room, then you're going to pay a lot more money to get that roof put on. It's the same principle here. You got to hit it at the right time, otherwise you're on the bottom of the bell curve. The costs are going to go up because you're going to have to replace a lot of decking. You may get into your substructure of your home. Same is true here. So, let me now show you the final page, and these are the master thoroughfare roads to be paid, or the countywide thoroughfare system that is represented on the map. But I have to explain to you that we maintain an annual program, I just told you, and we do about 60% thoroughfare roads. We try to hit a goal of 60% thoroughfare roads out of our operating budgets, 40% local roads out of our operating budgets. You're going to see some very notable roads missing from this list. The reason for that is within the last 5 years, we've either resurfaced those roads or they are in our current contracts to be resurfaced this year. I'll just give you 3 examples. Chapel Hill Road will be resurfaced this year before the end of the year. From South Elizabeth all the way down to 166. Post Road will be resurfaced this year from just south of Mason Creek all the way down to 166 this year. Riverside Parkway will be resurfaced this year from State Route 92 all the way over to State Route 6. And there are other thoroughfare roads that are missing from this list that have either been done in the past 5 years and don't fall below that fair rating, or they're in a contract for this year. Now, if you look at the total, and if you look at the page in general, it gives you the road name, the limits of that segment of road, the width of the road, and the length in miles. If you go to the bottom of the page, the last page, you'll see that there are about 172.5 miles of thoroughfare or network roads that either have needs now or will have needs before this 6-year program ends. Now, some of them are 30s, some of them are 25s, some of them are 27s. We re-rate roads every 2 years. We try to re-rate every road every 2 years. So some of these numbers are going to go up as time goes on because the roads are becoming more oxidized. They're getting more water infiltration. There are perhaps longitudinal fractures and what we call the alligator fractures that start to allow water to get into those subgrades. So at $18 million over a 6-year period, with the understanding that we can perhaps do 15 to 20 miles a year under this resurfacing program, of just thoroughfare roads, this is in addition to what we do out of our operating budget, then you can see that we can potentially do 100 to 120 miles of roadway, maybe even more, depending on cost. Yes, sir.
Does Douglas County have enough employees to do that much roads, or will we have
We
to
don't.
contract it out? or-
We do both. We will contract some out, and we will do some with our own forces. It's a good point you brought up. One of my efforts that I've had discussions with the county administrator about, and the board about, is we want to take the responsibility of largely doing all of the residential roads in our operating budget, all the residential roads and local roads, do those with our own county forces. The reason we want to do that is because when you're out on these thoroughfare roads, it takes a lot more manpower, a lot more equipment resources. You have to run a paving train. That's the, the shuttle vehicles, getting people back and forth, shutting down lanes, and there's greater liability. So it's very likely that most of these roads that are in this program will be contracted out. And we still contract roads out in our current operating budget, but we also do a lot of roads with our own forces in order to try and save additional dollars where we can. So that's a good question and a good point to be brought out. So potentially, we could do, like I said, 100 to 120 miles under this program. Now, what do we get out of that? It goes back to that graph that I showed you, and to supplementing what we're already doing, which puts us in a more sustainable state to manage our thoroughfare network. At the end of the day, if we're able to do this, it's going to cost taxpayers less money to resurface roads in the future, because we'll be getting back to them on a more frequent basis rather than letting it get down below that fair and poor condition where the costs start to go up. And that's where you get into the rehabilitation part of resurfacing a road. You have to build more underneath in order to put something new back on top. So without dragging this out, I mean, we've got about 15 minutes left for tonight. I want to answer any questions that you have, and then before we leave here tonight, what we'd like to do is get your buy-in and your adoption of this process as the process to resurface the thoroughfare roads in this county going forward under these SPLOST dollars of $18 million, which would equate to about around $3 million a year. And if you're inclined to approve that process, then that's all we're asking you to do with this segment of the program. Unless you want to think about adding more money or whatever, I'm not sure that's out of bounds, but I want you to recognize that what we're trying to do here is become more sustainable and save money for the future. So that's all I got. Be glad to answer any questions.
Why did you pick about a third of the 51% for resurfacing? Was there something that drove that decision?
A balanced program, having a balanced program that, but first of all, let me, I picked more than that, but things get, I mean, it goes through a filtering process, and we all have, there's give and take, You guys.
As far as the ratio goes, that's about what you picked,
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah, the ratio's the same.
Ratio's the same.
Remember, when
Initially,
you guys
had
met
more money.
originally, what was for transportation?
55. Oh,
Yeah.
no,
No, it was more than that.
more than that.
Yeah. So, and it got reduced down, so that's how, but proportionally, everything came down in proportional rates. So, I'd like to get it up even higher in terms of being more sustainable, because, but that's another story for another day. I mean, you can understand that as the county grows, we get more traffic, we get more development, we get more road users. freight tonnage is increasing. All these things come into play. That's why it's important for us to have this surge in our program and become more sustainable. So, I hope that answers your question.
So I guess my question is, as the committee here, you're asking for us to agree that the $3 million per year roughly for the next 6 years should go towards the thoroughfares, is that?
No, I'm asking you to agree with the process. Now, if you wanna mess with the money,
No, I'm saying,
and
is
you're
that the
so,
process
you're in
that
so,
we're?
you're so inclined to do that, then that's your prerogative.
No, I'm asking, that's the process
Yes.
that we're discussing.
Yes, and right now, what we have proposed is $3 million per year. That's right.
And then,
Spend it this way.
and then spending it that way.
And that will not keep us from getting the matching funds from the feds? Gotcha.
Will not. Our operations program, our annual budgets will continue to
So that
move
we-
forward
so we-
as they do right now.
So
And
that we can meet whatever, okay.
yes, we will not leave our money laying down at the state cap.
So this is supporting the ratings process that he's explained. It's endorsing the philosophy of fixing the worst roads first.
That's right.
And it's saying that you want to spend the 18 million. So the first question is, do you endorse the methodology that will be used? Does that make sense to you?
And it's not new methodology,
No.
this is the process. we
It's just
currently use.
introducing it to you so that you know what we're, you know, how
Sounds like
things
a
are
good
thought.
model to me.
It is the model, and we continuously follow this process, and we continuously try to educate our staff about how we can do this better. But this is the process that's followed. It's consistent with the Georgia Department of Transportation's process.
I guess I have one more question. I might have two, but I can let it coordinate. So looking down here, I'm just gonna pick an area that has multiple sections on here, like Central Church Road. It's got some 26s, some 27s, and a 28 in there. Do you just go and hit that 128 section, or would we take all of Central Church Road if there are multiple sections that are becoming
Good
in that
question.
close range?
We would look at the traffic loads, the rating of the entire road as a single unit. We break it up into pieces like that because it's easier to rate, but typically, we like to resurface a road from one point to the end.
Okay.
Examples would be Chapel Hill Road.
And that was
Yeah.
one of my other.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see right now, there are worse areas on Chapel Hill Road in some segments than there are in others. But if you've got areas that are starting to fail, the others are coming. They're just right.
We're already disrupting traffic through
Yeah.
portions of it. Okay.
I have a question. So this is just for the resurfacing, it is not to fix anything while you're out there resurfacing? And when I say that, like, that the intersection is bad, or the view is bad, or anything like that?
No, this is just simply a maintenance routine, it's a routine maintenance activity, but it's a very, very expensive routine maintenance activity. And quite frankly, you know, I appreciate what you're asking, and those will be covered in some of the other project categories. But the biggest job that we have really on hand daily is to maintain the assets that we have and maintain them in a good condition at the very best cost efficiency that we can. When we get into the intersection projects and we get into the roadway upgrades, then that's where some of the questions that you might have will likely get answered.
So will they kind of go hand in hand?
No.
Because it would be like, okay, I fixed the road, but really it wasn't fixed because it was too crooked or it was too
Yeah.
this.
Well, you know,
So then we gotta dig it back up.
yeah, well, the way we do that, let me just give you some examples. How many of you have been through US 78 at Connors Road recently? You've seen that it's all ripped apart and torn up. Completely massive intersection project is going to be built there within the next year. If we had a resurfacing project that was going through that area right now, we would simply jump over those project limits. We wouldn't do any, we wouldn't spend money on what we know is going to get torn up. So if we've got another project program on one of these roads, we will consider that as we go through with a resurfacing project. You know, and that's, but to be able to say, hey, we're going to resurface this road, and then, by the way, we're going to, you know, whatever, put in sidewalks or add turn lanes, that's a different capital element for a different day. And there's so much intricacy and so much detail that has to go into the design and the construction, staging, and those sorts of things for a project of that type, that it's not feasible to do it all as one main project. You know, we do acknowledge when those things occur, or we've got them in the program, they're in the pipeline, then we do coordinate that. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. Does that include the cleanup and also them putting the stripes and everything back?
It includes, when they first go out and start to resurface, they'll do what we call clipping the shoulders, which means they get all the vegetative growth that's creeped over the edge of pavement. They remove it. Then they will go in and do deep patching or the rehabilitation down to the subgrade. Then they'll come back, put a leveling course on in some cases to make sure that we've got a crown on the road and appropriate drainage. Then they'll come back and put a surface course, which is a higher level mix that gives you the drive quality that you get on a new roadway. Then they will come back on all of these roads. They will be restriped where striping exists with thermoplastic striping, and there will be reflectorized pavement markers added as part of that as well.
Okay, and then you just hit on my second question. I was wondering, are we using like the best materials for those roads in terms of giving us that longer time?
We use the state specs. We use the GDOT specifications. We use, first of all, we follow the standard engineering practices that are typically looked at when we put these projects out to bid. There's certain safety features, certain ways that things have to be done that follows a process. We follow those processes. Thermoplastic striping, the reflectorized pavement markers, all of those things have to meet certain standards prescribed by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a Federal Highway Administration document. We follow those guidelines. It's actually mandated that we follow those guidelines, and you know, those are the standards that we work by.
Okay. Do we find sometimes that we need to go above some of those standards, or is pretty much what goes?
We, from time to time, and the manual acknowledges that you can enhance those standards from time to time. For example, I have one of my staff members here tonight, Hayden Gillino, and we will operate, or we look at an operational issue, and maybe there's a nighttime visibility problem or a problem with signage and marking. We may go back and reallocate how the roads are marked. We may do what's called doubling up on signage. We may double up on the spacing of the reflectorized pavement markers just to create more driver awareness to a problem.
So the question is, we need to call the question if we're going to end at 8.
Move to accept?
Pardon? So you vote to accept. Did you have a question, Millicent?
Well, I just wanted to know if any of these would fix any of those dirt roads that we have.
These are only, as I said earlier, we have to manage the assets that we have. And, you know, I know some people live on dirt roads, but it's hard for me to go to my board of commissioners and say, hey, can you give me some money to pave this dirt road, when I'm still trying to take care of the roads that are already surfaced and paved. So to answer your question, no, this is a resurfacing program, so it will not address any unpaved roads.
So, Michael, you said.
We have a motion to accept?
Second.
I move.
Second. You want to vote? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Now let's applaud ourselves again because that is awesome. Okay.
We just wanted to make it sweet.
So, you know that September 1st, we will be talking about economic development. Obviously, we're also going to be talking about the intersections and operations piece. Because Chris Humphreys, who is the head of economic development, is going to come for the economic development part, we thought that it might be appropriate to start at 6 with him, and we'll do economic development and then intersections, so we wouldn't have him waiting for some, undisclosed amount of time. So, do your homework, and basically your homework really is just to go to those two areas and think about the questions.
Did everybody get the homework
No,
assignment?
nothing's written, just, does everyone have,
Well, there was written things to consider.
Yes.
there are things to consider, but nothing, you don't have to
You don't have to
write
do
in,
any
you don't have to
writing,
put
or
in anything.
there's no assignment, it's just, look at the area and look at those things that were identified. And start to fill your head with thoughts about those things.
Thank you. Debbie, do you get that?
Oh,